Hello and welcome to my community on Afrocentric Television channel 15.8. As you all know, this is the station that brings about what's going on here in Houston area, especially, within the African community, the diasporans, but by extension, of course, the United States. My name is Kola, and I'm here with one of our he's not a stranger to the studio, by the way. He's used to be a host here when we were still, of course, Vineyard Television. He hosted the Fresh Perspective with Adidion on Vineyard Television, and I can't even tell you. I will let him, say a little bit about himself before I actually do a formal introduction of him. Ray Shackelford.
Shackelford.
Yeah, Shackelford. I just gotta get it right. Shackelford. Well, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I just went, it delights me when I see, Africans, or, the people that would attend the minority, attaining and doing something great. So I just really, really want to get into it and just keep it going, I get excited sometimes. But yeah, that's what it is. So he is with us in the studio, Ray Shackelford.
Yes, sir.
You are, well, before I mention the position you hold right now, you were a member of the Houston Area Urban League for Young Professionals.
Yes.
Then you became the vice president and now the national president.
That's correct. So yes, this past summer, I believe it was around July 25th of 2019, I got elected as the national president for the National Urban League Young Professionals. It was established formally, actually here in the city of Houston, back in 1999. And it was created to create a leadership pipeline for Urban League affiliates across the country, which are different nonprofits that serve the community in the areas of housing, jobs, education, economic development, as well as health. And our membership right now is about 6,000 strong.
Wow.
In over 60 cities across the country, ages 21 to 40.
6,000.
6,000, a number of different professions. And we support local urban leagues through volunteerism, advocacy, and fundraising. And one of the exciting things is that the conference is finally coming back to Houston. It'll be here August 5th through the 8th. This summer, so I'm very excited.
Oh, we're gonna need you to come back talk about that, because I mean, you already know there's these statistics out there that says Africans. I didn't want to say Nigerians because
Right.
I'm probably Nigerian, right? So Africans they have a high qualification when it comes to education, even professional level, and I don't think a lot of them are aware that there's an organization such as this that could be used to give back not just to the community and that they can benefit from.
No,
Also,
absolutely. There's a need to do, I think, a lot more outreach. We did some small things when I was president. Obviously, Adidion helped with a lot of that.
Yeah, she is awesome. She's awesome.
Most recently, we actually did a partnership with them on National Voter Registration Day, organization called AfriPac.
AfriPac, yeah.
And so we worked with them to register voters over at Prospect Park on that day. And so we've been looking to do more in that respect. And like you said, connecting across the diaspora, because at the end of the day, we are one community. And I think it's important for us to do more education both ways to bring us together. And I actually had a conference call. I need to follow up with him, Dr. Allen. He's based out of Nairobi. They have this conference where he's trying to invite us as the young professionals over to Africa. And so that is something that we're very interested in. We're engaged in and trying to figure out the best way to facilitate it moving forward.
That's in Kenya. I remember we talked about it. Yeah. So I was very clear that when it comes to Nigeria, just let me know, right? So and see how we can bridge that gap, because we have a lot of professionals here in the United States and also in Africa. But a lot of people want to go back to Africa, which is their root, but they don't know how to go about it. They organizations such as the Urban League can help bridge that gap, along with Chamber of Commerces that are around the Houston area or even the United States in general. Because sometimes what you need is the comfort where people are comfortable doing what you want them to do or what they want to do, because you work so hard for your money, and then you just don't want to lose it elsewhere. As you're a professional, they said, oh, because if you do that, they call you, oh, he's stupid. Why would you go and do something like that? You know what I mean?
No,
so it's always better to align with an organization that has a good vision for, you know, probably something you have in mind, and then you can collectively birth that.
No,
you know. You also you had a radio talk show named The Agent of Change.
Yes.
I like that. That's like Agent of Change. You can either be a devil or the advocate, or be an angel. But it was on Synergy Radio Network.
Yes.
Right. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So that was a show originally, and it's funny how I got into it. I approached Mr. Perry Seeley and Morris Parsons about doing voiceovers. And then over time, they were like, well, we don't need voiceovers, but we want you to do a show.
Oh, the voiceover, you're going to be making a killer too. This your voice, man. Yeah.
That was how that conversation got started. But they were like, no, we need something with young people centered around community. And so we came up with the concept around discussing politics, civics, anything in the social space, but trying to drive young people to make a change. And so that's what it was birthed out of. Initially, it was just me, myself, but then I ended up co-hosting it about 6 months in with Ms. Shakira Dennis, who's very engaged in that political space. She actually just launched her own consulting firm, Next Wave.
Nice.
And so we were able to make a lot of good change and drive a lot of good conversations through that. A lot of it, like I said, was civic-based. We did get a chance to talk about local politics, how that impacts people, and then transitioning, as we were talking about earlier, to fresh perspective.
Right. I was going to come back to fresh perspective anyway.
Which was more focused on the African diaspora and the need, again, to really build those bonds and that bridge to make sure that we are communicating as one community. I feel like there's a lot of misinformation that gets put out there, and it creates unnecessary tension on both sides. And the only way that we move past that is to actually sit down, have those conversations, get to know one another, build those relationships, so that we can become ultimately stronger. I
agree with you 100, because I remember being in Georgia, Cummings, Georgia, as a matter of fact, sometimes last year. My wife and I went for naming, and then we went to a store. Like, so it's a Walmart. With my cousin. So we went over there, and there's this dude, he's African American, right, quite all right, but he approached us, you know, he felt like we weren't afraid to pick whatever we wanted to pick. You know, we got into the aisle, we looked for what we wanted, we're not even checking what, you know, how much it costs. Right. I need this, I'm getting it, period. I came to the store, right, that means I can afford it. So we just kept, so he looked at us, then we were talking, you know, in our local dialect, and he approached us and said, excuse me, yes, sir. And I said, well, I'm African. I'm African. I think I'm African, but I'm African American. I said, oh, good. Yeah, what's good? And he said, well, I just like the way y'all do your stuff, you know. Do you guys hate us? I like, hate y'all? What do you mean? Why would I want to hate you? I don't have nothing against you. You know, some of us don't like y'all, though. You know that? I'm like, why would you not like me? What did I do to offend you? I mean, I don't overstep my boundaries or whatnot. So he was like, it comes to be that y'all come over here, y'all fly high, you drive the best of cars, you live in big homes, and then when y'all go party, you take our girls, you pop champagne, I sit there, you know, tomorrow, and I'm like, yo, but you did say something earlier. You said they work hard. Basically, that's what you say. Mm-hmm. So when it's time to play, they'll play hard. And it has nothing to do with me not liking you. This is you feeling less of yourself. Right. You know, and you know, and I'll tell you what. If you had exposed yourself to so much, because you have an American passport, we had to labor to get an American passport, stay out of trouble, whatever. And then when we get it, we're trying to keep our composure. You know, we start to keep our heads up and whatnot. But because you have it easy, you didn't even try to use it. I asked him, when was the last time you went out of Georgia? Not even coming, so Atlanta, out of Georgia, this state. Never. That's what I'm talking about. Right. See, I flew from way over there down here, and even out of that, I've been going about the world on vacation or whatever. And I learn people's culture. You have to learn people's culture, their traditions, so you don't have a misconception about who they are and what they do.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And these are things that I believe Fresh Perspective, talk about and deal with. And, such organizations that you guys are putting together, these are things that you guys have to bridge that gap. Because we need to understand one another. I don't hate you.
Right.
You don't have to hate me. But, except you know somebody, though, it's hard to tolerate them.
Right.
You have to love someone first before you can tolerate them. It's just that easy. I just have to bring that up because it happened just so, and I had to change his mindset, his perspective about the way Africans are. No, we're not violent people. We just love life and we live it. You have it too. You have that opportunity. Do it.
Absolutely.
And if you think there's a better way to go about doing things, hey, I'm open. We exchange numbers, and I told him, hit me up. If you ever feel like you want to come to Africa, and I'll be around that time, let's do it. You're going to love it because you're going to be welcome like, what's her name? This lady, Cardi B, just left Nigeria. She never, ever wanted to leave. It's just funny how it is. Until you get onto the other side, you may not understand or know what it takes to be those people on the other end.
Yeah, you definitely have to experience it. And I think, no pun intended, but you have to get a fresh perspective. And that was, the intent of the show is to give them additional information.
Bam, that's what it is.
Yep. Because we see, and we saw in the 2016 election, there's a lot of different misinformation that gets pushed out, whether it's through, Russian trolls, social media, or we see constantly out of the White House, even now with the coronavirus, our president is just blatantly lying about things. And so it confuses people, it makes them upset, it, impacts their decision making. And for me, I've been blessed, and you have also, in terms of having that access and the ability to travel and experience different cultures, different things, so that you have a broader perspective. And that, just because you hear something about this person or that segment of people doesn't necessarily make it true. You have good and bad people, irrespective of what the ethnicity, race, or religion is.
That is correct. But anyway, we still have more to talk about because the purpose of you're coming to the studio is to talk about the housing reforms in the Houston area, right? And which you're sitting on the board, right? So, but I didn't want to go into it now because you still have one more thing we still want to talk about, which is the Independent Police Oversight Board that you're sitting as a board member also. But before we do that, let's take a little break and we will be right back.
It's a Good Time Tour. Live at the Revention Music Center, 520 Texas Avenue, Houston, Texas. Yes, DeVito will be live in Houston Sunday the 15th of March, 2020. Come enjoy unlimited entertainment with the multi-award winning Nigerian-American Afrobeat superstar. The Omo Baba Alowu crooner will set the stage ablaze with performances from his latest album, A Good Time. For tickets, visit livenation.com. Sponsorship considerations. Call 832-298-8400. Brought to you by Duke Concept and Check Pay Nights. Afrocentric TV channel 15.8 will be on the red carpet.
Welcome back to my community on Afrocentric Television channel 15.8. This is the station, however, that brings about we Africans in diaspora, especially here in Houston, which is our home base. Today I've been talking to a gentleman, of course, who was a host here on Afrocentric Television, well, formerly Vineyard Television, on Fresh Perspective, and we had a little talk about how the misconceptions comes about and how you perceive others to be, but they are trying to bridge that gap. They're trying to neutralize the heat, the friction between Africans, because we are one, not just Africans, the world in general. I don't see why we should hate on one another. We have so many potentials. If the same energy you put into hating, if you put it into positive stuff, you never can tell how much impact you will make in your society. Anyway, welcome back to the show. I'm still here with Mr. Ray Shackelford.
sir.
I had to say it right. Take my time and say it gently. Welcome back. Well, earlier we were discussing, fresh perspective and, other things that you had done, agent of change and a lot of things like that. And also, of course, you being the national president of the Houston Area Urban League for young professionals.
Yes.
But now, one of the things that happens in the society today is when people get to a certain age, other than their credit, there are other programs that are in place. We want to talk about the housing reform in the Houston area, and you have just been appointed as a board of the Houston Housing Finance Corporation.
Yes.
But before we talk about that, you also wear these hats of a member, of a board member, of course, of the Independent Police Oversight Board.
Yes.
Let's first talk about the Oversight Board. What does it entail? The IPOB. Oh, by the way, IPOB also is something in Nigeria. I'm sure you know, right?
Right.
That's why you're laughing. Yeah, but that's not what that is here. This is the Houston IPOB. It is the Independent Police Oversight Board.
Yes.
Okay, and Mr. Shackelford here is a board member. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
So yes, Independent Police Oversight Board was created to give community members the ability to advise police and the powers that be about different use of force cases. So let's say an officer has a physical altercation with somebody in the community. Maybe there was some verbal abuse potentially, but whatever the file or the complaint was, it goes before one of the panels. And there's 4 panels that cycle out every week. And so it's panel A, B, C, and D. And those cases are randomly given out. You look at them in terms of the case files. You see the history of the officer. You see the history of the individual that filed the complaint. If there is body camera footage, because that's a huge thing now, we have an opportunity to actually look at that footage. If there's dash cam footage from the police car, we have access to that as well. And even sometimes if there's a security camera
around the vicinity,
we have that as well. So a lot of different information that we get a chance to review, and we look at it from the standpoint of the general orders, which is basically what governs the behavior of our police officers here with HPD. We look to make sure that they're acting in accordance with that. And if there is an issue, we make a recommendation, whether it's about training, policy, or potentially some type of punitive action, whether it may be suspension or something like that. And it goes to a larger board consisting of the panel chairs, the council person over public safety, the police chief, and the mayor. And they ultimately make the final decision about what will or will not happen as it relates to that officer, any training or policy changes concerning the police department.
But at least they give you the chance as a citizen to take a look at this file. That's something huge, because that means they're going to have to open the file of the police officer in question,
right?
And they're gonna have to let you see his background, his things he has done in the past, how his judgments are, and if it affects his judgments now, right? So that's a huge one for y'all to. So you make those recommendations, not necessarily determine what the punishment or the outcome will be, but at least you bring it to light with the mayor. And who else do y'all report to?
Chief Acevedo. And the
Chief of Police
and the council person that's over public safety.
Over public safety. So all 3 of them, yes. And then they make their decision from there.
Along with the panel chairs, yes.
Oh wow! No wonder we don't see an excessive use of power with the Houston police as much as we do in other states.
Well, we've seen little things here and there. I'm not gonna act like there hasn't been anything. I personally have not reviewed any of those cases. But there have been a couple of instances where there's been some contentious and even controversial things that have taken place.
Interesting.
But I just didn't get a chance to review them because they went to a different panel. Because like I said, they rotate randomly, so I may or may not get a chance to review it. And so in those instances, I didn't see it. But the other thing is, like you said, because we do get access to case files and whatnot, we're not allowed to discuss those things publicly in terms of the specifics of the case, but we can speak in general terms.
Yeah.
And so, the majority of the things that I see, for the most part, our officers are acting in accordance with the general orders. I'm not seeing too many things, but there are certain times where we have to question why did they pull this individual over? Was this profiling? Or maybe there was an instance where an officer thought they saw a gun. And for me, that was very troubling, just because you've seen time and time again in the news where that's happened and somebody ends up losing their life. And so for me, when somebody is seeing things or imagining that something is there and it's not.
Yeah, and as based on assumptions.
Right. That is an opportunity where that person needs additional training, and potentially they may or may not need to be an officer, because, for me, there's a very specific type of temperament that goes into that role. I know I can't be a police officer. I don't know about you, 'cause I don't have that temperament.
That's why I didn't buy no gun.
Right. And so, I own one, but it stays at home. And so you have to understand those different dynamics. Also talking about, the mental health of officers. How often are they getting psychological evaluations? Because the type of work that they do is, thankless. There's a lot of pressure. And, interesting enough, one of the highest instances of where they actually lose their life is traffic stops. It's very routine. And so,
really?
Somebody might get nervous. They may reach for something. And so at the end of the day, a lot of officers are trying to get home. But at the same time, you need to have cultural competency. So when you're interacting with someone who doesn't look like you, you don't go based off assumptions that you've seen in media and then make a bad decision. And so those are the types of things that we talk about, try to make recommendations around training to make sure that our officers have the tools that they need to go out and be the best servants of the community as possible.
And I think you guys are doing a fantastic job doing that, because even if it is happening, it's you can't compare it to the way it's been happening all over the United States, especially here in Houston. You rarely see cases like that. But like you said, not to say it never happened, right? Fantastic. So here now, let's talk about the main event, the Houston Housing Reform. You're sitting on the board of directors, rather on the board as a board member of the Houston Housing Finance Corporation.
Right.
Can you tell us what that is?
So yes, I actually got appointed about a month ago.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And, the outreach has been nonstop, literally ever since I posted it. People are still reaching out. And there's a lot of misconceptions about that, just because of the history of the board in terms of what they've done as it relates to down payment assistance, different programs with single-family loans to purchase homes. And so currently, what we focus on is affordable housing projects.
Before you go into those affordable, tell us what that Houston Housing Finance Corporation, what is it? What is it set up for? What do they do?
So basically, it is a arm of the city to help facilitate different projects. So basically, filling in a finance gap for tax credit projects for different developers around the city within the Houston metropolitan area. Like we were talking about earlier, some of Houston obviously does go into Fort Bend as well as Harris County.
Yeah, it's because people, that needs clarification, as a matter of fact. Because I asked you earlier if it's local just to Houston, or Houston metro area. Because a lot of people don't understand. They still call Conroe Houston. They call Woodlands Houston. Those are cities of their own.
Right.
However, the Houston metro area encompasses all of these into one, and some are under Harris County, and some are, there's the part of Houston that is still in Fort Bend, right? But how do y'all balance that though?
So each county actually has their own financial corporation that plays a similar role in helping to fill the void for developers with these different projects. We typically deal more, I guess, in what you call Houston, even though our jurisdiction is Houston metropolitan area. But one of the things that I think people don't understand is it's based on the projects that developers bring to us. Tax credit projects, when you're talking about affordable housing and receiving bonds, there's a lot of compliance that goes into it. Very complex issues. Even as a new board member, I'm still learning about it. There's a lot that goes into it. And so there's not a lot of developers that understand the compliance and or have the capacity to do these multifamily projects, because you're talking about anywhere from, let's say, a 70 apartment unit property to maybe 200 to 300 units. And so as a developer, do you have the capacity to do something like that? Do you understand the compliance that goes with it? And then do you have the buy-in from the community?
So three things you said now. One is getting the buy-in. the compliance, and also the financial capability. Right. Before that, though, does it mean that this corporation render down payment assistance to not the okay? Let's bring it back. We have home buyers, we have developers, right? We have real estate companies, right? Loan officer, whatever in between. Now, who can benefit from this corporation?
So, in a sense, all parties at one stage, but we deal directly with the developers. There are other vehicles within the city of Houston that assist individuals when it comes to down payment assistance. You also have entities like the Houston Black Real Estate Association is one that just comes to mind that helps to facilitate partnership or working with people to get loans for housing and closing the gap. And so right now, based on the administration we have with Mayor Turner and City Council, our focus is dealing with developers. And so in the past, under previous administrations, the corporation's been used in a different vein, and that changes based on who the mayor is and how they deem it to be the most effective way to use
to allocate the money.
Right. And like I was telling you, you have a budget of about 33 million, give or take. And right now,
for the year or throughout the term?
Throughout for the year right
for
now.
The year.
That's what's in the account right now. And obviously that changes based on projects we may be working on. We actually just finished the brand new HEB over off of 288 and what is that, McGregor.
288 and McGregor.
So that was a project where we worked with the city to help fill a gap from a financing perspective in acquiring the land that was needed for that project. So that's an example of something where we partnered with the city to make sure that it got done and working with the developers. And
for a developer for HEB.
Right, the developers, not just HEB, but the developers that worked on the project.
No, I'm talking about in this instance, the HEB project.
HEB, because it was something that the community said they wanted. They wanted a new grocery store, even though, there was a lot of controversy around that because everybody in the community didn't want that. And so that's one of the challenges is that the community piece in terms of making sure that you are getting support from the city council person, the mayor, but also the civic clubs, the different associations that are representative bodies of the community when you trying to get those tax credits. That's a critical piece, like you said, in addition to compliance, but also capacity. Do you have the ability to guarantee at a certain level these types of deals? And you're typically talking about anywhere from $2 to $5 million that you would need to be able to guarantee, but then also the capacity to complete these types of large-scale multifamily projects in some instances.
So if I'm a developer that I want to take advantage of this, what are the 3 key components that I need to have in place in order for me to work with y'all to help me access the little fund, either for bonds or whatever that I need to execute a project?
So the 3 key things are compliance, making sure that you are registered with the city and meet their requirements for these types of projects, but also when you're talking about HUD, when it comes to affordable housing, which is Housing and Urban Development. And that's a federal agency, and it's a lot of different requirements to go into that to make sure that you are protecting the community and not, cutting corners when it comes to the types of projects that you're putting in these communities. Because a lot of times they're looking at low to moderate income neighborhoods, not always, and there's also a misconception about affordable housing, but that's, conversation for another
day, right?
So yeah, that piece in terms of compliance, capacity, like I was saying, the ability to guarantee at a certain level that amount financially, anywhere from $2 to $5 million, which, for developers, there's not a lot of developers of color, I'll say, or black developers that meet that threshold. But then also the community buy-in. Have you already done the legwork in reaching out to
the community and see if it's something, see if it is something they need or something that's required of them?
Yeah, because if you haven't done that, that's a box that has to be checked off at some point. And so we have to make sure that they've done that, because if they haven't, then we can't move forward with the project anyways. It's something that would stop it because you don't have community buy-in.
And people need to know that this corporation does not give like down payment assistance for. There's a totally different department for that.
Right. There's a separate arm within the city that does that. You can go through different nonprofit agencies to get I think it's a certificate for completing first-time home buyers courses, and with that, you can then obtain down payment assistance from the city as long as you don't make above a certain threshold when you're talking about the area media income, AMI. And that actually, I think that threshold just got increased. But yeah, that's a separate arm of the city that handles that. We do not issue down payment assistance. A lot of people have been reaching out.
It's always good. That's why I wanted to just spell it out. That it's not something y'all do.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
We do.
So you work, for the most part, you work with developers.
Almost exclusively, we work with developers, and so this is helpful because a lot of what I'm trying to do is more education around the board, what it does, how we can help people. And even as I learn, I'll continue to put more information out there about it.
And we're here to assist you getting that out to the people that needs to hear it, because we need more minorities to participate in these kind of programs, especially when it's there. And knowledge, they say, is power. Information, however, is key to that knowledge. If you don't have the right information, you can't even access that knowledge that you need to execute.
No, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I'm going to be spending a lot of time doing is education and awareness to make sure people know it exists, what this vehicle does, what role it plays in the community, but also giving more developers of color, more black developers, an opportunity to be in this space, because if they don't know about it, if they don't know what the compliance is, what the capacity requirements, we'll never have anybody in that space. We do have a few in the state of Texas. I want to say about 4 or 5 that I was made aware of in a meeting the other day, but there's not a lot. And so you'll see a lot of the same developers coming to the table. They do also work with subcontractors. That's part of the requirements when you're looking at doing these types of projects, is to help kind of bring them along so that they are learning and building capacity over time. But that's the thing, is it takes time because it's a very involved process.
So if there are, and this goes also to those, because there are screening levels. Some does not have the right paperwork or certification or whatever it takes, documentation, you may say, to become a prime contractor for us, even if you are a developer, right? However, if there are, I thought there are some funds set aside for minorities, right, to participate in certain projects, as the city gives, like the HUD, Section 8A, things like that. And when you're DB certified, you are SBE certified, and those minority men, women, veteran, things.
MWBE program.
Yeah, MWBE program, things like that. As a subcontractor, if I come to your organization, let's say the corporation, and I need to participate in some of these, and there are already primes that are the contract have been awarded to, and I know for sure before these contracts get awarded to primes, there's a need for subcontractors from the minority level to be a part of it. Are there ways that subcontractors can be matched with prime contractors under this corporation?
So yes, not necessarily under the corporation. I think that's actually facilitated through the city. But what I would say is that if you reach out to us, then we can put you in touch with the appropriate parties to make sure that you are involved in that process. And so as people are reaching out to me, as I find more developers, because that's something I'm looking for, is more developers of color, more black developers, so that I can make them aware of these things. So I would definitely encourage people to reach out to me, and I'm sure we're going to push out my email address.
Oh, yeah, you're going to say it, then we're going to still write it at the bottom. So people know it's coming from you. It's not just us putting your information out there.
To make sure that they can reach out to us, and we can get that information in their hands. But again, we do not do down payment assistance.
They need to know. So what kind of assistance do y'all do for contractors or the primes, or if I'm going to say these developers?
So right, for the developers, we serve to provide gap financing. So let's say you have a $20 million project and you have, $12 million approved from the bank, but you need another $8 million in financing, we may be able to do a bond along with one of these tax credit projects to help you fill that gap. And that's where we play a very vital role in terms of helping developers get these projects done when it comes to affordable housing. And they're not always completely affordable housing units. Sometimes there's some market rate units that are included because, again, it's based on community input. So it's a project.
Yeah, because there has to be a buy-in from the community. This is what we need in our community first. Right. You would have done your feasibility studies. You would have gone knocking on doors, making sure, is this what y'all want, what y'all need, and also working with your city council to understand what that particular community needs.
Right, and so that's one of the things we're trying to do a better job of, is putting feelers out there to get information from the community in terms of what they want to see. But the challenge is, it's not just about what the community sees, it's about finding developers that want to do those types of projects. Right. Because we can't make them do
That's right.
type of
That's
project.
right.
But if they want our financing, we can, hold them accountable in terms of what our requirements are.
Are there times when you throw out bids to find the right developers to take on things and that can contend for the opportunities?
So no, we don't put out bids because, again, it's based on what the developers are trying to do and what they can get buy-in from the community.
So it is you initiate it as a developer. You initiate projects.
Right. We just do the education, the awareness to make sure people know who we are, what we do, how we can help developers. But ultimately, it's incumbent upon them because, again, we can't make them do certain types of projects. And for me, it's been eye-opening because it shows the need for us to have more developers that want to put what we want to see in our communities. And so for those people that may not be in the space and are looking to get engaged in it, that's an opportunity I see, because the reality is that all developers may not want to do the types of projects they want. And so if you're a person in the community, maybe that's something you need to look at.
Hey, and that's the reason why I didn't call you. And so, do you mind giving us the information on how to reach out to Mr. Ray Shackelford?
So yes, you can reach me via email, raybshackelford@gmail.com. That's RAY, B as in boy, SHACKELFORD@gmail.com. And I know Cola's going to push that out as well.
That's for sure.
That's the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you, man. I know working for the city is something. Y'all are busy. I don't know how y'all do it, but then you wear a lot of hats, and you still take time out to educate us, to come to the studio to talk to us about things. And this seems to be something you enjoy doing, bringing the best out of people, letting them see lights where there seems to be darkness. And that's a beautiful thing, a beautiful mind to have. And you said something when we're talking. You said, none of these hats that you wear is superior than you being a father. How's that child of yours?
So Jordan, yes, that is my pride and joy. She just turned 10, actually, I want to say about 2 weeks ago, on the 16th.
Well, look at you. Congratulations.
Yeah, I was telling somebody at church yesterday, because they're like, oh, we getting old. I was like, no, I'm not getting old. I'm still young. But, she loves to read. I don't know where she got that from. Her last 2 birthdays, she literally wants to go to Barnes and Nobles.
Imagine.
And just
who does that?
And buy all these books. And my mom.
Man, you are blessed.
I am. My mom was like, do we need to put a limit on it? I was like, I don't care how much she spends on books. So whatever she wants, I'm going to buy it. Because, she could want video games or something else. But she literally wants to go to the store and buy books. Wow. So man, you were blessed. That's a child. That's a child that's got a future right there. I think so.
Well, it's nice to have you in the studio, and I'm sure we're gonna have you some more times. Come back some more time. Educate us as things unravels, as things development comes to the corporation, and information needs to be put out there. We will love to work with the city. We'll love to work with y'all to make sure our people, when I say our people, African Americans, the minorities generally in the Houston area and in diaspora in general, are taking advantage of what is available to them and for them. Right?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ray.
I appreciate
it, man. It's nice to see you. All right. Well, we will be right back. Do not touch the dial. Rather, the station is still yours here on Afrocentric Television, channel 15.8. I'll be right back. My name is Kola. Stay tuned.